The final version of iOS 16.2 is now available, and it brings dozens of new changes and features to the table. We're going to walk through them right now. If you're an iPhone 14 Pro owner, one of the biggest new features is going to be the always-on display updates. Now, this is how the always-on display normally looks. You get your clock, your date, your widgets, your wallpaper, and any notifications. Now, some people say, hey, this wallpaper is still way too bright and it's still too much information. So Apple has answered the call. If you open settings and go to display and brightness, you'll see a new always on display panel. Now, in iOS 16.1.2, all you had was this little switch for always on to turn it on or off. But here in 16.2, you have the always on display master toggle, but you also have a wallpaper and notifications toggle. So of course, if I turn off the always on display, then you simply get the black screen like we've always had with iPhones. But the iPhone 14 Pro, of course, it's special, so it has that always on display. Now we're going to turn it back on, and now we're going to toggle the wallpaper off. So now you can see all the information there, but notice no wallpaper. So it's very much like Android devices in this configuration. So let's go ahead and go back to our always on display preferences here. We're going to turn the wallpaper back on, but this time I turn notifications off, I tap the screen to wake it, and then notification appears. So now we're going to turn off both and just keep our always on display simple, date, time, widgets, and that's about it. We tap the screen, the wallpaper, and the notifications appear. Now, have you noticed that in previous versions of iOS 16, when you invoke Notification Center, all of your older notifications didn't appear until you swiped up like that? Super annoying, right? But here in iOS 16.2, Apple has addressed that, so all of your notifications automatically appear in Notification Center. And even if you swipe down to dismiss like that and you reopen, they reappear. So one little plug, I promise. If you appreciate in-depth walkthroughs like this, then leave a thumbs up because that's going to help people to know that, hey, this video just might be legit and I might want to watch it, and that's going to help the channel to grow. Appreciate it. Now you get lots of cool lock screen updates in 16.2, starting with a new health widget for medications. We're going to remove these widgets here, scroll down and find health. There we go. So there we go, medications, view reminders, and quickly access your schedule so you get those reminders for your medications. Just add them like that, and when you tap, it will take you directly to the health app, the medications section of the health app, that is. But that's not the only new widget. You also have a new sleep widget, which has both your data and schedule for your sleep schedule, and also your most recent sleep session, including sleep stages. So we'll go ahead and add the sleep schedule and the recent sleep, just like that. So, of course, if you tap the sleep widget, it'll take you directly into the sleep section of the health app. In iOS 16.2, you have to long press on a link focus to access its options. So you can't just tap like that, like you could previously do in previous versions of iOS 16 to either change or disable the linked focus. But if you long press, you can easily access that on 16.2. Have you ever had a wallpaper and you were thinking like, man, I wish I could find that original photo? Well, now you can. Thanks to 16.2, you tap the little ellipsis button there, tap Show Photo in Library, and it takes you directly to that photo in your library. You can see this one's from 2009. Now in iOS 16.1.2, you'll notice that when you have sleep mode enabled and you open up the full screen album artwork, that alarm would actually be superimposed on top of the album artwork. But in 16.2, you can see that issue has been resolved. Now for this one, I don't even know if you can technically call it a feature as much as it is a limitation, because in iOS 16.2, Apple is limiting AirDrop Everyone connectivity to just 10 minutes. So no longer can you have everyone enabled indefinitely for AirDrop connectivity. Whereas on previous versions of iOS, as you can see here in 16.1.2, and ever since AirDrop has been a thing, you could always have that everyone option enabled indefinitely. But here on 16.2, no, Apple's basically said no. At 12:54, AirDrop's going back to contacts only, basically. Now here's a little tip in Control Center. If you long press like that, you can quickly access your AirDrop settings. And yes, you're limited to 10 minutes there as well. Here's a really cool new feature, prefer Siri silent responses. So if you go to settings, Siri and search, and Siri responses, you can prefer silent responses now, which is great if you're using Siri in public. Previously on 16.1.2, you can see you just had automatic and prefer spoken responses. So this is a nice new feature. And Siri stays silent unless you're using headphones with the screen off or if you're driving. What time is it in New York? So no spoken response, but I get the info I need. 16.2 has a couple of cool new weather app updates. So you have Apple News integration. So in areas where there are relevant weather-related news stories, you'll see those embedded directly within the area or the location. So you can just scroll down, tap that story, it'll open up Apple News. You can read that and gain a little bit more insight as to what's going on in that particular area. Very cool new feature. Now, it doesn't stop there. You also have an updated forecast animation when you scroll through the forecast with your finger like that. Previously, it was every hour. See how it would just jump between hours? And it's kind of just a choppy experience. But here, it actually will have a smoother minute-by-minute animation instead. In the App Store, you'll notice an updated Discover layout when you tap the Search tab. See, you have a new column-based layout with a little magnifying glass glyph. And you can now report visual lookup errors. So if you open up the Photos app, for instance, here, and I use a visual lookup, now you can see the report an issue button at the bottom. So what do you want to report? Results that are incomplete, results inaccurate, or an offensive result? You can just tap one of those and send that along with the attached photo to Apple. So live activities now can be updated more frequently. So here's an example of those live activities for the TV app following your favorite sports teams. Now you can get live activity updates more frequently if you go to settings and you go to TV and you select live activities. And there you'll find a new switch for more frequent updates. So more real-time information for live activities at the expense of battery life. And third-party developers will be able to support this as well. 16.2 also ushers in some changes for the Shortcuts app. For instance, the battery level action gets new variables. Previously, you had no variables for get battery level, but notice in 16.2, you can switch between battery level, is charging, or is connected to charger. First, let's test out battery life.
58.9999618533027.
Okay, so 59%. And that was a little bit too specific. Let's try is charging.
No.
Correct.
No.
It's not charging, but let's plug in the charger. So, are we charging now?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Let's disconnect. Are we connected?
No.
Exactly. In addition, there are new Lock Screen Wallpaper shortcut actions. So in previous versions of iOS, all you had was Set Wallpaper, and that corresponds to Set Wallpaper Photo on 16.2. Now the difference is you can actually choose which wallpaper you want to affect. And of course, the only ones available are the wallpaper photos, not just the standard wallpaper. Now, Get Wallpaper allows you now to select all or current wallpaper and then switch between wallpapers, does exactly what it says it does, and you can switch between any of the wallpapers, including non-photo wallpapers. And in 16.2, Apple introduces an architecture upgrade for Home. So this upgrade, which I did perform in a previous video, you could check that out for all the nitty-gritty details, but the point is, this architecture upgrade is supposed to make controlling your devices more efficient and more reliable. And for all of my friends in India, 5G support is finally a reality with the first two carriers, Airtel and Jio, on board for the 5G rollout. So for users in India that were brave enough to run the iOS 16.2 beta, they've already been enjoying 5G connectivity on Jio and Airtel. But with the wider 16.2 public rollout, you'll be able to fully take advantage of 5G and all that it brings to the table. So in 16.2, Apple is finally rolling out its ability to restrict access to iCloud data on the web. So if you flip this switch at the bottom of Settings iCloud, you'll notice here that it's going to say, don't access your iCloud data on the web. So basically, this is going to allow you to turn off access to things like mail, contacts, calendars, etc. via iCloud.com. Now, this was actually a feature that was in the initial iOS 16 beta, but was removed and never reappeared until just now. So you can see I try to access my data, but it says, hey, you turned off iCloud data web access. But here's the thing. First of all, I'm going to actually just force close the Settings app so I'm back to the main root of the settings. Now notice this notification you'll get. If you tap that notification, it will take you directly to, it's a deep link directly to that particular setting, and you can easily turn it back on. I thought that was kind of cool. So you just tap access iCloud data on the web, it'll turn that switch back on. I simply refresh iCloud.com, and now I can access all my data. Rapid security response updates are tiny updates that are security focused by nature. So for instance, if there's a super important bug fix, Apple can roll out a security response update instead of a full-fledged iOS update. And you can see this one's only 96 megabytes. You can check out the full video where I walk through security response updates if you want the nitty-gritty details. But the point is here is that it only takes roughly 30 seconds to install this update, just like that, and we're already done. So this rapid security response, even though that was a test update, kind of shows us what to expect, and you can see it right here under iOS version. So iCloud Private Relay, no longer in beta, by the way. If you go to Settings, iCloud, this is an iCloud Plus service, so this is a premium paid service, of course, but Private Relay here in iOS 16.2 does differ a bit from previous versions. So notice the differences when I turn off Private Relay. So here I have turn off until tomorrow. So that's a new option. And once you do that, you can see Private Relay will automatically turn on tomorrow. Here you can either turn it off or keep it on. So notice here when I swipe back, you can see it's in a paused state. So that gives you the status knowing that it's going to turn on again tomorrow. Here's another new feature. So show hide IP address. So you can actually toggle Private Relay directly from Safari, tap the website settings button, tap show IP address, and it will no longer hide your IP address, browsing activity, and protect your unencrypted traffic. So you can see Private Relay still disabled. So if you visit another page on the same domain, Private Relay will not re-enable automatically. You can see it's still disabled, but if you refresh the page or visit a website outside the domain, it will automatically turn Private Relay back on. Now here's a biggie, advanced data protection. So Apple has long protected things like health data, maps data, and passwords using end-to-end encryption. And this can only be decrypted on a trusted device like your iPhone or iPad. Well, Apple is significantly stepping things up with advanced data protection. So along with the 14 sensitive data categories currently using end-to-end encryption by default, ADP will bump that up to end-to-end encrypt 23 services in all, some of which you can see here like photos and notes. But the really interesting thing, device backups and messages backups are also end-to-end encrypted with ADP enabled. And that's interesting because while iMessage in and of itself has always been end-to-end encrypted, the loophole was to basically just target your backups for those messages to gain access. But with ADP enabled, that will no longer be possible for Apple to access that data because they no longer have the decryption keys. So before you proceed, you're going to want to set up a recovery key, and it's also recommended that you set up a recovery assistance contact just in case you lose access to a trusted device. So I'm going to turn this on, but you're going to see something very interesting. I can't enable advanced data protection on this device because I haven't owned this device long enough to do so. Just one more potential vector that Apple's eliminating for possible compromise. But I have on the iPad Pro for plenty of time. So if I go back into iCloud settings, advanced data protection, I'm going to go ahead and enable that. And now you're going to see update your devices. So you're going to need to update any of the devices linked to your account that aren't running 16.2. Otherwise, you're going to have to remove those devices. So now I can turn on advanced data protection and you'll be met with this very ominous looking message, basically telling you, hey, if you lose access to your trusted devices and you do not have proper account recovery etiquette, ensuring that you have account recovery methods set up and keeping them up to date, you could lose access to all your data because Apple no longer has access to those keys. So Apple really is taking this seriously. They want you to verify your recovery key. So you actually have to type in that 28-character recovery key to verify you actually wrote it down. I recommend a hardware wallet or someplace to store that securely, not a piece of paper just laying around the house. So after you verify using your passcode, advanced data protection is now enabled. So you just tap on done, and now, folks, we are enabled. You can see advanced data protection is on for both of my devices, and any other device you want linked to your iCloud account will need to be running 16.2 or later. Now, iMessage contact key verification is a feature that actually won't be launching until 2023. But if a bad actor were able to breach cloud servers and insert their own device to eavesdrop, conversations between users who have iMessage contact key verification will receive alerts. Now, 99% of people in the world aren't going to have to worry about this because state actors aren't targeting them. But for high-profile targets, this could be a nice thing. Again, this is coming in 2023. Now, there's also hardware security keys for two-factor auth. This too launching in 2023, and this too more than likely not going to be used by the majority of people, but still a very nice feature. It takes two-factor auth to the next level, basically by using a hardware security key as one of the two factors. And Apple itself isn't producing the security key, but you'll be able to purchase them from a third party, and there's also NFC-enabled keys as well. Now, there are tons of Apple Music updates in iOS 16.2, headlined by Apple Music Sing. Now, this is sort of that karaoke mode, and it has 4 different main features. So the first feature is real-time lyrics. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, we already had lyrics, but notice the difference. In 16.2, the lyrics are real-time, meaning every single word, it tells you exactly when that particular word is sung. So that's quite a big difference between having each bar or each line highlighted. Now, what about songs that are duets? Well, that's where Duet View comes into the picture. So you'll see lyrics on each side of the screen to indicate each singer. So for instance, you see, just the two of us, just the two of us. Now, if there's anyone still watching after that debacle, thank you. But seriously though, even without like the karaoke aspect, just knowing who's singing and what words being sung is really cool. Now there's also animated lyrics for background vocals. So you see, lovely day, lovely, lovely day, lovely day, lovely. You know what I mean? So you can see the background vocals denoted by that smaller text. Makes sense, right? But on previous versions of iOS, you just have this big block, all these lovely days, no idea who's singing what. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So much better in 16.2. But this, folks, the ability to adjust vocal mixes is the big feature here. So you tap that button, you can see the little indicator says sing. And what this allows you to do is to adjust the vocals on the song separately from the rest of the song. So all the musical instrumentation still at the same volume, but you're able to reduce the volume of the lyrics so you can sing along, right? And of course you can raise it as well, just like that. And if you raise it all the way to the top or tap the button, it will just disable the vocal adjustment. Awesome feature. But that's not all as far as the music app is concerned. You also have a new lossless button when you're playing back lossless music. And you'll also enjoy an updated animation when hiding or showing the transport controls in the lyrics view. Previously, this was just an abrupt switch between the two. Now you get that nice and smooth animation. And if you tap the ellipsis button in the upper right hand corner, you can quickly report a concern over lyrics, and it could be because the lyrics are just incorrect or they're not in sync, whatever the case may be. And now when viewing an album with animated album artwork like this right here, you're going to notice translucent play and shuffle buttons and other assets like the description, along with some of the music metadata. And you'll notice that the transport controls within the music app interface now get the same button animations that you find on the lock screen live activity and within Control Center. And you'll notice that the favorite artist section under Listen Now is now in list form compared to how it was before. And in 16.2, when you connect to your vehicle via Bluetooth and you select the car stereo device type, you'll notice that the device glyph is now a vehicle. So you'll find that not only on the lock screen, but also within Control Center as well. So now let's talk about iPadOS 16.2. The big news is definitely the return of external display support for Stage Manager for M1 and M2 iPads. So I've connected my M1 iPad Pro to my Pro Display XDR. And of course, you can adjust the display settings for both the internal Retina display and the Pro Display XDR. You can also change the arrangement of the iPad in relation to the external display. Not as flexible as you'll find on macOS, but it'll do at this early stage. And you can also adjust the recent apps and dock for both the iPad internal display and the external display separately. So that's a nice feature to have. Now, speaking of features, what do you guys think about this? Wouldn't it be cool to have a true clamshell mode when connected to an external display? In this case right here, I'm just faking it. I've turned the lock off when closing the cover, but that would be a nice feature to have for sure. And you'll also notice a subtle change to the way that the widgets are stacked within the iPadOS 16.2 notification center. And lastly, let's briefly talk about the Freeform app. This is, of course, the freestyle creative app that allows you to sketch out projects, design mood boards, brainstorm ideas, collaborate, and so much more. Basically, this is sort of like Notes on steroids. And when I say on steroids, I truly do mean it. It's basically like you just have a huge canvas that you can move about, you can zoom in, zoom out, and pretty much put whatever on that canvas. There's all sorts of different objects, which will kind of remind you of some of the features in the iWork suite. So this is like all been merged into this one app. Of course, you can go in and change any colors. You can duplicate items like this. And again, there are tons of objects, basic geometry, animals, nature, food, education. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? And you can change the colors of any of those, change the size, duplicate. And the point of this whole thing is that there is no point. You can use this the way you want to use it. There's no specific rule to how you have to use the Freeform app. If you want to use it for collaboration, you can do that. If you want to just use it as an idea board, you can do that. And again, you have all these boards that you can easily hop in and out of. And of course, this is not just an iPad exclusive. This is also available on the iPhone as well. And I find that it's a pretty good starting point for just like getting the creative juices flowing. This again is Freeform. I'll have much more on this in a more in-depth video to come. So ladies and gentlemen, that has been a look at iOS 16.2, now out of beta and available for everyone. If you enjoyed this video, then don't miss these other videos. Yeah, these right here. This is Jeff with Cellular.